there, YouTube? Double D here with Tournage du Bois. Welcome back. Back in the shop. Been really busy with work, some personal trips, things like that, but I got more coming up, and I got an art show coming up. So just continuing to work through processes. We got this piece from a guy who had cut this down in his front yard. There's a little crack over here that goes through, so I'm going to be cutting that corner off. So we're going to try and make a piece out of this. Got an idea percolating. We'll see what happens with it, but let's get rolling. So I marked center, drew my circle, rough cut it round just to get it kind of where I want it. Got it on the other side, got that crack gone. Beautiful spalting so far. We'll get this set up between centers. So this part's flatter. I'm going to use that to make my tenon. Then we'll get it flipped around in the chuck jaws, and we will start working on the idea. So slight change of plans. I actually put the flatter side against the chuck jaws to start. We're going to start flattening this out, get it smooth. So once we get that done, we might just put the tenon on this end and go from there, but it wouldn't sit flush with the drive spur, and that's what I want it to do, is to turn it right. All right, so this wood is pretty punky. I shouldn't say pretty punky, it's relatively punky. There's some good solid pieces to it, but down here around this base portion, it is a little punky. So I'm gonna get this on some sanding sealer. I'm gonna get this flipped around so I can start doing some shaping here on the top portion. And then we'll be able to come back and knock this back. Maybe have to do some CA glue. I don't see any cracks right now. Maybe this right here. It's more spalting, but there might be a little cracking there. So we'll just double check before we start going from there, going on. But you can definitely see the punky right in here, So we'll be, like I said, doing some sanding sealer. That'll stiffen that up. We'll get a good cut on that. And then we'll go back with good sanding. Probably a couple of more coats of sanding sealer as well to get this piece knocked out and moving forward. So we'll see if this little pedestal base stays on it. I do like the look of that, but at the end of the day, we shall see. So I won't show you the sanding sealer portion, or at least not much of it. If I do any CA glue, I'll bring you back for that. And then we'll get this flipped around. All right, we are back. I'm gonna use some Star Bond medium thick dark brown just to fill in these little bit of gaps that we have here. Nothing super significant. I hope that'll just kind of blend in. Plus it's gonna be on the bottom side of the piece. So I'm not super duper worried about any look issues or anything like that. But we'll just get this to where it'll kind of fill that section in, and then we'll be able to knock that back a little bit when we scrape and sand it to blend it all together. It's a little bit rough here, no real big tear out. That'll come out with sandpaper. So the rest of this should be fine, just kind of that little section right there. Use a little bit of accelerant just to cure it up. All right, so we got that hollowed out. I did use my carbides a little bit on the hollowing, but there's our gap at the bottom. So that's how thick the bottom is. So just over 1/2 inch. Really excited about that. The walls are just about 1/2 inch as well, so it's pretty consistent. A little bit thicker on the base, just to give it a little bit of weight. Plus then we've got the tenon or the pedestal to think about. So I am going to sanding seal the inside. It's not super punky, but that way it keeps it a consistent coloring. And then we will get to sanding. I will scrape this outside out where the glue is here. And then we will get on to our next portion, which I'm really excited about as well. All right, we have that sanded up to 320 grit, denatured alcohol time, just to pop that grain, clean it up a little bit, then we'll sand it again with 400 grit and go from there. Really excited how this is turning out. Pun is intended, as always. Any woodworking joke is appropriate on my channel. Really excited about this, got that good wall thickness, so really happy with how this is turning out. I want to thank my friend David Shore. He has a Facebook marketplace. He sells a lot of wood that he gets burl-wise and stuff that he gets shipped in. Really reasonable price, but this actually came from a maple in his front yard that he took down. So I just wanted to give David a shout out just for giving me the opportunity to use some of this wood and showcase his pieces. I got a few other pieces for some projects I need to get done. So really excited to see how more of these turn out, but this one's just beautiful, and like I said, this came from his front yard. So sanding this up to 320 grit, I did have the lathe changing direction with each grit, so it's nice and smooth finish. But this wood, but the denatured alcohol will stand the grain up just a little bit to give it one more smooth pass on that 400 grit, just to knock it back and help minimize any sort of imperfections that might be lingering. And then we'll move to the next portion. All right, I have this Elm Burl cap. I'm going to flatten off this bottom edge, and that's what we're going to use for the lid for this piece, hopefully. So keep our fingers crossed, and let's get rolling. Now you might ask about this little bit of missing area. The rest of the piece is solid, and since I'm not going to have it in that for a super duper long time, I'm not going to worry about it too much. Basically, I'm going to get that bottom fixed, flattened out, get the inside rim portion done to where it sits down inside the piece, and then I'm going to flip it around and put it back all together and then turn it as a whole. So not to worry about that. All right, the camera died for a moment, but the battery, put a mortise in it, put some beauty rings in. It's a nice fit. We'll get this flipped around to get the top started, start shaping the top, and then we will keep moving forward. All right, we got that mortise done. We got this flipped around. So now we're gonna start establishing the crown and then develop the lid. All right, we're gonna get this on the piece and turn them both together now. The only thing I'm doing here is I want to get this top portion where to line up to where it looks like it kind of passes through this crown. So that's the only thing I'm going to do with it on the piece, and then I'll get it taken off so I can sand and get that part finished. Okay, so I've got that pretty close to where I want it to be. I'll be able to fine tune it from there. So let's get it off here and get to working. Okay, we got that crown portion pretty consistent on the thickness. So I'm going to flip it back around in this so we can sand and get the outside, the bottom part done. And then we'll be able to flip it back around and get this part done and then get everything finished up together. All right, we have that sanded at 320 grit. I'm going to hit it with the denatured alcohol just like I did the other one. Lets us really see that grain, which is, holy mackerel, you guessed it, amazing. Elm Burl is absolutely beautiful with all the eyes and everything. So super excited about this. I think it's going to look great with the finished piece. Just that color is beautiful. So get this all wiped down. I'll sand the bottom at 400 grit. I probably won't bring you back until I do the finish on the outside portion, since that's the part that will be seen the most. So that way we can get this knocked out. But I figured you would at least like to see what that looks like right now. All right, we are back. We have these all sanded. We have them abrasive pasted. So sanded to 400 grit, laser engraved with the sanding seat or the abrasive paste applied. So that's a nice tight fit on the lid. That's what the end piece is going to kind of look like. We'll have better shots later on with the wrap up, but we're going to get the finish applied. So the Tung Honey finish from Brad's Workbench is what we're going to use. So check out his store down below. There's a link in the description. And if you use the coupon code DD10, you will get a 10% discount on your purchase from Brad. I like using the Tung Honey finish on the live edge pieces because it's a little bit easier to apply. Overall, I like the Tung Honey finish. That's just the one I use out of the two. So he has the Tung Honey and the Tung Wax. Tung Wax I use when I want to do like a friction style finish. Both are very durable, but the friction finish is what I typically use on like pins and things like that. Whereas this one I use on more live edge and intricate pieces. Just apply a nice liberal coat to it, and then if any of it soaks in, you just add more to it. If it doesn't soak in, you just take you use your paper towel the next day. I usually let it sit for about 24 hours, and then I just take off any that's excessive and go from there. It cures up real well, typically within just a few days, to be honest with you. I like to leave it set for a while though before I actually give the piece to the person who ends up with it. But it goes on super easy, smells great, and is highly durable, and most importantly, food safe. Hey everybody, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that project where I took that Spalted Maple and the Elm Burl and turned the lidded box. I'm calling this the crown of contrast. I wanted this natural edge crown to stand out. Just the graining, the contrast between the graining of the Spalted Maple and the absolute beauty in the swirling of the Elm Burl cap is just top notch. The fluidity of the movement between the box and how the lid lines up with it. Not quite sure how well you can see that, but just I wanted to keep that smooth transition so it looked like a circle with a little bit of a crown on it. Gives it that final artistic view that we really want to look at in these pieces, to see the graining and how that contrast really stands out and accentuates the beauty of the piece. So just throughout the process, obviously I finished this with Brad's Tung Honey being the live edge piece that it is. I made the little raised foot so it has something to sit up, give it a little bit of extra prominence. Got it laser engraved with my logo. The lid is a pretty good fit. Not super tight because I want people to be able to access it and utilize it, but it's good enough. It doesn't wiggle around, so it's not loose and wobbly. The walls are a little over 3/8 of an inch thick all the way down. The base is a little tiny bit thicker, one because of that pedestal, but also just to give a little bit of heft on the piece itself. Put some beauty rings on the inside of the lid just for an extra point, just for an extra visual point of beauty within as you're looking into the piece when you take the lid off. Hope you really enjoyed it. As I said, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Leave your feedback down below because I do appreciate that. And if this is your first time here, do consider subscribing. I do try to put these videos out. The frequency hopefully will be increasing. I have an art show coming up, so I am looking to get back in the shop. I've got some work trips coming up soon, so trying to accommodate that, but am looking to get back into more time in the shop to get more pieces done. But absolutely happy with how this turned out. Leave your feedback down below, and we'll catch you all next time.